Now let's get talking. Telecommunications operators in Nigeria say they have been granted approval by the Nigerian Communications Commission to disconnect banks' Unstructured Supplementary Service Data. That's USSD debt, which has amounted to about 120 billion naira. This was made known in a statement signed by the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. The USSD is used by banks to offer various services ranging from money transfers to airtime purchases to their customers and has been a bone of contention between telcos and the banks. But as the number of users increased, the loggerhead between the telecoms and the banks increased. The dispute has hung on payments of arrears and pricing models that the service providers failed to agree on. Well, joining me to do this and look at what this means for the sector and, of course, the implication of all of this is the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. It's good to have you on the program. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Yes, I know we've talked about this before now, but at the moment, 120 billion naira is what we are talking about from about 42 billion naira in 2021. Why did we wait this long? What's been happening all the while? And we're getting to the point where telcos might disconnect the banks.
Thank you. The debt that was at 2021, which stood at 42 billion, was as a result of the banks not paying after the determination of the USSD pricing in 2019. So we had a period of 2019 to 2021 when they refused to pay. And by January of 2021, we approached the regulator to enforce the terms of our commercial agreement to withdraw the services to the banks. And it was then that the minister stepped in and said to us that for public good and for the interests of the consumers, parties should not withdraw the service, but rather we should go into a negotiation and agree on how the debt will be settled. All effort made between then and now to get the banks to pay, meetings were held, agreements were proposed. Till this time, they didn't honor those agreements. A number of the banks didn't pay. And so the debt accumulated, and today we are on a profile of 120 billion naira outstanding.
I think there seems to be issues around model of the financial transactions or mode of collection, and of course, issues around agreeing on what to pay, what to be paid, or what's not to be paid. Can we get clarity on that?
Well, this is what the banks are saying. And, unfortunately, it's very typical of debtors. When people owe money, they find all kinds of reasons why they shouldn't pay. We provide carrier services, and what we do is to deliver subscribers from their devices to the platform of the banks. It's like you hire a taxi to go to the bank. If you order an Uber car or a taxify to take you to the bank, so long as the driver delivers you to the doorstep of the bank, his work is done. He has no control over what happens when you get into the banks. So what we do is provide similar service by way of carrier service from the devices to the door of the banks. And once we have confirmation that the transaction is concluded by way of we delivering the service to the platform of the banks, we have no visibility over what happens there. So if the banks are now coming to say that some of them are all successful and all of that, we do not know. And the thing is that we also know that the banks are using the USSD for other applications. Some of them are using it to sign on new subscribers, using it for credit control and all of that. So there are a number of sizes on which they apply USSD. And they cannot say that for every subscriber that calls in and it is not successful transaction, operators are not to be paid. And we're saying that we do have record of transactions, and for all the things, monies we're asking them, we have record to the effect that these are successful transactions. But you see, it's very typical in this part of the world where people owe money and they don't want to pay. They find all kinds of excuses. Last week, they were saying, yes, they agree they owe. And they came back and said it is end user billing that should be right. And today we're hearing them saying that USSD is expensive because data rates are expensive. So they just change the narration from point to point. And this is what they have exercised in the last 2.5 years. And so it's in part why the debt profile is that high.
This is sad. Now, the implication of this on the services of mobile network operators is what I would like you to also shed some light on. What does this mean for the sector?
So us as an industry, they occupy the same resources that you use to make a call or to send a text message. So it's like part of regular subscriber activities. But I think it has more implication on the public and on the banks. And there's a moral question to ask. USSD today is not offered free of charge by the banks. In essence, whatever transaction you do using USSD today, you get charged for this. And we're asking what happens to the part of this money that belongs to the telcos. So if they're saying that in the intervening period they offered this free of charge, we will say, it's been offered free of charge, and therefore operators are not entitled to receive anything. But we do know that these are services that are fully paid by subscribers, and the big question is, where is the money?
This is very, very. Let's now look at, government will always have this position that if this is done, if you go ahead to shut down the service, it will affect the move, talking about financial inclusion that government has been driving, the digital inclusion of getting more people banked, taking them away from that unbanked circle. What does this also mean to the industry?
For the greater good, we need to get this money. It's 120 billion naira for one industry, for one sector of the economy. It's a lot of money by all accounts, no matter where you look at it from. And if we don't curtail the debt profile, it will grow bigger and bigger to a point where even debtor parties may not be able to pay. So I think for the sake of survival of the industry, this money has to be paid. And I think it's important for all stakeholders to prevail on the banks to pay this money to the operators, because we cannot sustain this debt, this level of debt. We cannot continue to provide services that are unpaid. And the thing that is that it has an impact on the operators' operating cash flow. So it is very important that we get this money back. And I think the right thing for the banks to do at this time is actually to pay this money and stop changing narration as to why and how, what should be and what should not be.
So was it this narrative issue that also popped up during, because I thought there was a time there was to be an MOU, there was to be an agreement with intervention of the NCC, the CBN, and all into this matter. But the banks did not sign into this agreement. They didn't put pen to paper.
Yes, if you follow the release that we issued last week, we narrated there that unfortunately, even the proposed MOUs MOU was not signed. We've had different drafts going from party to party in the last 2 years, and in particular, the banks just refused to sign. And we're therefore saying that the argument today is baseless, because if what they are saying is that it's some form of billing method that should have been applied, they are saying that it is due to high cost of data and all of that. Well, why are all of those not considered in the agreement? So what they are saying now is actually after the fact, because if their concern is in terms of the kind of billing method, I think that should have been considered in the draft agreement, and accordingly, they should have brought that to the table. So why are they bringing it after we have come to a point where we are now going to withdraw services to them?
So is there an ultimatum or number of days or given now to the banks that if they don't comply, these services will be shut down, or it's just open-ended?
Now that we have received the approval of our regulator to disconnect, we are now enforcing the terms of the agreement. You know that individual MNOs do have agreements with the banks, whether directly with them or with their aggregator. So we are now following terms of those agreements, which allows for withdrawal of services when there is the established case of the default in payment. We're going to follow the letters of those agreements now.
A lot is also playing out in the sector. Let's use this opportunity to just touch on one or two other things that are, of course, plaguing the sector. I know before now a lot of other challenges. What other very important things do you think will be a quick win for the sector as, of course, we move into another administration? A lot of agenda setting everywhere. What is your take with regards to the telecommunications space? What are the opportunities you see around that space?
For reasons of further development of the economy and the sector, we need to continue to look at fintech. Fintech is an area that is going to help the economy. But for that to work, the banks and those who are in that sector they need to come open and come transparent in dealing with the operators. Looking at the rapid development of technology, we're now going into eras of 5G and the rest of them. And when all of this are developed, we're going to be having what we call high volume data, big data, and then artificial intelligence, and a number of applications that will help the end users. But parties must agree to work together, in particular to honor the obligations as due. We're quite concerned, and indeed we're unhappy about the development with the banks at this time. And we only hope that they will do what is right, to pay to us what is due to us.
So when we talk fintech, we now see the way most of our tech-savvy guys are leaving the country. That is of concern too. Are you worried about that?
Well, we've spoken about the impact of brain drain on the sector, and we are not unaware about the socio-economic problem. But you see, if people have no social guarantees, what do you expect them to do? I mean, once you train an expert in Nigeria, he's certified on systems and all of that, he has recognition all over the world. So what we are seeing here is that we are training a lot of young people. They are attracted to the international market, and they're just leaving. So government has to do a lot more in terms of giving social guarantees to people, particularly to the younger ones. Because if they have no hope of what will happen in the country, what we are seeing is what you will see. So I think that government needs to do a lot more in terms of providing security and guarantees for people, that people can live good quality life, assurances that all will be well, assurances that facilities and public infrastructures will work and will not lose its brilliant hands.
Well, almost finally, I know we've talked about infrastructure challenge also affecting the sector. What other things are we looking at? I was talking about setting an agenda earlier. And what other things can be done to make sure that now this time around the telecommunications sector contributes more to the GDP of the economy? Yes, it's been doing pretty well.
Energy, high cost of energy. High cost of energy. This is a major problem. Today, diesel is selling at well over 700 naira. 2 years ago, it was at 200 naira. High cost of energy, security of our infrastructure, access, unhindered access to facilities, protection of public utilities, including telecommunications. These are things that the government needs to address.
Finally, Engineer Adebayo, the payment, back to the payment again, because that's where we started from. What is likely for our turn to bend? Can this be done in phases? Or all you need is just commitment of how this payment will be made. It's a lot of money, we must agree. 120 billion naira.
Well, we've made our position known to them. They have been rightly informed about our minimum expectation. Unfortunately, this has now become a matter of public debate, which is not what we expect, but it is what it is. We expect that at minimum, some commitment will be made, some guarantees will be given that are sustainable. In times past, we've had commitment made that were not fulfilled. Guarantees were given, but they were not fulfilled. So it's a bit difficult for us to walk away with the promise that this will happen. We are saying now it's either pay the money or we would withdraw the service.
I must thank you so much for your time. I've been speaking to Chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, ALTEN, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.